Guys, you know what? The week of the Mat continues. Matthew Shinetti from TSN Sports was on with me yesterday, but today from Pat's Pulpit, CLNS, Matt St. Jean's back here once again as we divulge into like a full, how do you say it? A full dissection of what we've seen from the Patriots so far. So from the last time you and I spoke in February to May, where we are right now, where OTAs are going on, what's been your assessment of the team and what we've seen over the last 3.5 months?
A lot of change, first of all,
Yes.
which I think everyone will agree was needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the priority with the change has been character. One very consistent theme through your veteran additions and the guys you draft. You're looking for guys to fill out that locker room, and part of that's Mike Vrabel trying to make this team Mike Vrabel's team. I think also part of that is a reflection of what this team was lacking last year.
I completely agree with you in that sense where it's not even character, but like I don't know if you've seen Forged in Foxborough yet. I did watch the
I
first
have.
I did watch it Saturday afternoon. Um you get a lot of sense of where it's I don't even want to say where it was last year because I don't want to you can't rewrite the past. It's just I'm not a believer in that. It is what it
Mhm.
is. You can hark on it. You can think what you want. I just think it's silly nonsense. Where if it's like, oh, if this was it last year. The way I just look at it is, hey, this is a brand new football team. My only concern is I'm just scared of this whole Bearsian trap of you guys won the offseason. You've done great this offseason. Now go show it on the field to where everyone's like, oh, New England could do this, New England could do that. When we still have the head of the table still is the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. Well, I think it's everyone should be wary of being the off-season winners because this league is unpredictable, and typically
Yes.
the teams that actually do the best in the offseason are ones that get there in somewhat unpredictable ways.
Yeah.
Something pans out that people didn't see coming. So when you're the favorite, and it's Patriots have been off-season winners according to everyone in every aspect of this. They got the head coach that everyone thought was the number one head coach. They had what many thought was the best free agent class out there, and they had what was like consensus the best or second. I think it was the best draft by draft grades this year. So they won at every stage. So expectations are high right now. You look at part of this is the schedule being on paper right now an easy schedule, but you're seeing a lot of win predictions thrown around that have two numbers in it, and that's two digits, and that's not something you were seeing last year.
No, no, no. I only say the off the Bearsian thing just because last few years it's been them where it's like, oh, the Bears have
Mhm.
won the offseason. Look what the Bears have done. They won 5 games last year. With the double-digit win total, look, would be great, absolutely. But there's also a world too where I feel like I want to get your opinion on this because I've spoken to some Pats people. Like, look, there's some people I talk to, and it's more about seeing the improvements. Like I know you and I both interacted with Boris on Saturday. That's kind of where I
Mhm.
got it from. Where it's like, oh, what happens if the season goes bad? And I'm like, I don't want to think about that now because you can't predict where we are gonna be in 6 months from now. It's May. It's the middle of May right now. Where we are come American Thanksgiving, I don't know. But as long as their name is in the graphic of in the hunt, I think most fans would take that as a win for the year.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I do think you look at this roster, and like it's easy to look at the moves they made in the offseason and say, this is why this team might be in the hunt this
Yeah.
season. And I think that overlooks the single biggest thing. Like the moves they made this offseason are fantastic. And I think they raise the floor of this team across the board. I think you've got more depth and more competent starters at most positions than you did a year ago. If this
You
team's in the hunt, though, it's going to be because of Drake May. That's what it comes down to. That's why you took him where you did last year. And, you know, being a competent football team that doesn't lose games is how you end up like the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean that as an insult and a compliment.
yeah.
They're a team that keeps winning and can't win meaningful games. Um, to win the meaningful games, you got to have the quarterback. So, I think this team, look at the schedule. You can see a path to 8, 9 wins this year that have nothing to do with Drake May potentially. If you want to be a playoff team, you want to be really in the hunt, it's going to come down to what May gives you.
So I'm going to pull up their schedule right now because I know I look
Yeah.
and look, the schedule thing aside, that's whatever. That is what it is. The way I look at the way the schedule lines up right now, Vegas, I think, is going to be a harder out than a lot of people have given credit for right now. Because like with Vegas, I view it as this: they're a team on the up and up, but they're in a really bad spot in their division because you have the team, and then you've got two teams that are going to be competitive in 2025. Even though I do think Denver takes a bit of a step back, I don't mean that in an insulting way. I just look at it like a Houston, where it's like, hey, it's not exactly cupcakes and rainbows to get to the postseason if they get back there. So that I think that one is going to be an ugly game, kind of like what we saw week 1 last year against Cincinnati. Where it's like a 20, not 16-10, but like 21-16 or 21-17, something like that. It's like under 40 points total.
When
then
when the Pats won their opener with Cam Newton back in 2020, they beat the Dolphins, and I think the score was like 21-11, and like I could see that being that kind of game.
Yeah, exactly. It's a game at the end of it where like that wasn't fun, but we won, so I'm happy. Where it's like I don't. It doesn't feel right, but it feels good. It's like, tell me how to feel. It's the Ricky Bobby, like I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
But my big thing right now is that it's the week 5 Sunday night football game against the Bills. It feels, and I said this on my last, so not the episode with like I said, it's Matt week, everyone, not with Matt, but I was recording with my buddy McGarvin last week, and that Buffalo game is the real two things about that game. It's a test, but also when we hear it's time to meet the Patriots offensive starters and they go Drake May, UNC, that's going to hit. That is going to hit when you see Drake May on the Sunday Night Football graphic. But that's the game right there that's a measuring stick to be like, okay, what is this team? Now, if they go in there and get blown out, obviously, look, we can't control that. But if they go in there and they kind of do what they did last year, no one's going to discredit them. And now you're getting the national attention where then Monday morning, everyone's going to go, hey, Patriots gave them the run for the money, kind of like what they did with the Buccaneers back in the Brady homecoming game in 21.
Yeah, they showed they can compete. Now the stretch that I'm looking at is actually going to be the 4 games immediately after that. They play at New Orleans, at Tennessee, home against the Browns, home against the Falcons. This is 4 games where, in theory, you should have the better quarterback in all 4 of them. I'm not entirely sure outside of the quarterback position you have the better team. Like I think it's roster outside of the quarterback position, you're probably about equal with all those teams. So that's a stretch of games where how you do in that coming out of that Buffalo one. Like I think if you play well against Buffalo, even if you don't win, you're going to get respect.
That's exactly
You then have to turn that into wins over that stretch of the next 4 games. You got to go, obviously at least 500, but you really want to go 3-1 there. Pick up a win on the road in one of those spots. Go 4-0. You're going to be feeling like 2021, where in the middle of the schedule, they had that big win streak that also included wins over the Titans, Browns, and Falcons in that one too, to kind of set you up for the back half of the schedule.
Yeah, so I look at that like the Saints game because I'm like on the record by saying I don't think the Saints are going to be good. I feel like it's going to be not like it's like bad on accident, which is almost like worse than being bad on purpose. Like, how like last year when you like the Patriots, oh, hey, they're probably going to be bad. Like you knew it going into the year. But then it's that stretch where it's like Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta, where look, we don't know what we're going to get from the Titans, even though I don't feel like they're it. Cleveland's just they're I don't know what they're doing. And then Atlanta, I don't want to say I'm big on, but I have faith that Michael Penix can be the guy to turn them around and make them into something.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look at the 2 games, like the stretch right after, where you know what, that Tampa Bay game is a real test because Tampa Bay is the team that's like they've won that Division 4 straight years in a row, even with going from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield. They still have a really good defense. And then you have the quick turnaround with the Jets, where we don't know what the Jets are going to be. And then the Bengals game right there too, because that Patriot-Bengal game has some pretty big implications to where, look, for that game, whoever loses, it could potentially be you have to play playoff football pretty much from Thanksgiving till week 18. So there's a lot of intriguing storylines with this team that I'm excited to see unfold. It's just they have to, in my opinion, you got to win the games you're supposed to win. if you lose some, fine. Like we all know, teams are going to have bad games. It happens every year. No one's perfect in this league. Everyone has a shitty loss, but it's those games that you're supposed to win, but you're also supposed to steal a couple to where it's like, hey, look at the guys up in New England there.
Yeah. No, and that's going to be a good stretch for that. And I think this schedule is so interesting because like a lot of these teams aren't good, but they're also teams the Patriots have struggled to beat anyway the last couple of years. So it's like it's funny. You go back to 2019, if you go into that Patriot fan mindset, you're looking at the schedule. It's win, 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 win. Like you're so used to that.
Yeah.
That's a bad team and they have a bad quarterback. We're going to beat them. And that's where you're hoping Drake May can take them to the next level. We're recording this today, the second day of OTAs, which I don't know if you saw the reports out of OTAs. Drake May threw interceptions on 4 of his first 9 passes today, then rebounded nicely. So, I'm not going to draw a whole lot of takeaways from day 2 OTAs. But, I think it's a reminder that he played well for a rookie in that position last year, and there is room to grow. And he's learning a new offense, and he doesn't have the best supporting cast right now. So it's, and he's a guy who got injured last season. I think there's super high variance in what he's going to give you this year. I don't think it's crazy to say he's going to have 4,000 yards. I don't think it's crazy to say he might miss 4 games and struggle to reach 3,000 yards. I think both of those are very much on the table here. And that middle of the schedule is where it's just don't drop the dumb ones. If you lose because you get out talented, you can accept that. You can't lose because you get out coached or out prepared.
Yeah, like when I look at the out coached games, like I look at like the first year head coaches, like I look at the the Steelers one's a perfect example of that, and the Bills games. But I look at the Saints with a new rookie head coach. I look at the Jets with a rookie head coach. I look at the Giants where that game
team's not that good.
Well, no. That just looks like a game where it's like that letdown, that weird letdown spot, kind of the Bears game from 2022, where it's just, hey, the Bears for some reason decided to play like it was 1985 again and just dominate on all 3 sides of the ball, defense included. I look at the big game. I look at though, honestly, is one we haven't talked about yet, but Week 16 at Baltimore, right before Christmas, because at that point, is Baltimore still gunning for the one? Are they potentially gunning for the 1 seed? Are they still playing for a playoff spot? Because that's a team right at that time too. That's a team where it's like they're fine tuning their skills. Like I also off a non-Patriot note, like I look at that Bills-Eagles game Week 17, where it's like it's a marquee game, but at that point it's like what are either side playing for? So it's where there's a lot of intrigue and promise. It's just how far can you go? But I feel like no matter what, someone's going to be mad, like how, I don't know, you can get mad over a coach missing a game for their daughter's college graduation. It's just it's the where I saw it and I had to say something. It's
ridiculous.
It's literally the where, but like I said, Baltimore's again intrigues me, but the other one too, because I'm kind of like spying low on this team, but it's week 4 against Carolina.
Well, what you said about that Baltimore game, the way the schedule sets up is you got a whole bunch of winnable games in a row.
Yeah,
and a late bye, and you come out the bye, and
which
you
I hate.
You have to face the last 2 MVPs in a row.
Yep.
If this team is able to play good football, if Drake May takes a step, and they don't really hit a lot of speed bumps throughout the season, most of the moves pan out decently, and there's no obvious weak link. No chain has broken on this roster.
Yeah.
They're going to have a winning record coming out of that bye with 4 games to play and 2 games against teams that are Super Bowl contenders in this conference right now. I think what that means, I think one of the goals for New England, when you get to those games, you want there to be discussion about one or both of those games getting flexed into primetime because it's a big game and people need to see it and it's got playoff implications and it's young emerging quarterback against an MVP. That I think is something you want here. And I look at that Baltimore game. How did Mike Vrabel really make a name for himself as a head coach?
Baltimore.
Going in there in the playoffs against MVP Lamar and pulling off an upset with Ryan Tannehill. This Patriots team I believe this roster is worse than that Titans roster. But crazy things happen in football all the time. And people, they can outkick their coverage with this roster. They can be way better than we think they're going to be. You go into Baltimore, that game, even if it doesn't get flexed, let's say that game's getting moved to the 4 o'clock slot, and you're able to go in there and give them a game or even win it. All right, that will be one of those moments where it's like, okay, Mike Vrabel has this team definitively headed in the right direction. We know, right now I think we know Drake May is a guy.
Yeah.
We know he can play quarterback in the NFL. You win one of those, or even week 5 in Buffalo. You start to go, okay, we know he's the guy. This is someone who can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback in this league, without a doubt, if you're able to win at one of those environments. So very excited for that. And also the Carolina game. Yeah, that's a sneaky one. I like the way the Patriots match up in that, just looking at the rosters. I don't think the Panthers have the edge rushing talent to expose New England's offensive line weaknesses. And I don't think the Panthers have much receiving talent. They also have no defense. I don't know if you've looked at the Panthers depth chart right now. They have like no corners. Like
They have
there's like
Horn, and that's it.
Yeah. So like you protect it all. May's gonna slice and dice. I think that's a team coming up, but I do think I like that matchup for New England. The Pittsburgh game before is the one to me where it's like they might not have a quarterback and it might not matter because Mike Tomlin's one of those guys who can out physical you, out tough you, out coach you, even without a quarterback and get a win. So that's like, and then so they're gonna play a lot of close games here. You got a rookie kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Does that play into it? Are you losing games because your kicker's not making kicks and he's not big enough for the moment yet?
So we think Parker Romo won't make it to camp, or will probably get cut during camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's you draft a kicker, you hope, you expect that he's going to make the team. I mean, that said, I was looking kickers who were drafted around where the Patriots took Borregales. There are a lot of them that did not make it out of year one with the team. A number that didn't make it out of camp, a number that didn't make it out of year one, and still quite a few that a lot that were cut by the end of year two. I think there were only 4 kickers of like 11 that were drafted that made it past year 2 with their organization. And one of those, the name's escaping me, but he's a kicker who really did not play well. The guy in San Francisco, Moody, who has not played well, and he's still with the team. But we'll see how long that lasts.
Yeah. The way I just say that because I feel like I was going to say Parker Romo should be probably practice squad, if anything. I think, you know what, here in the spot.
Yeah, he's there to take extra kicks in his competition and as a fallback just in case the pick doesn't work out.
It's kind of like the Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury thing, where I feel like Bradbury probably starts the year and Jared Wilson probably either is there to back up, because I'd rather have Jared Wilson be the backup center. It's kind of like how I say, hey, Viridian Lowe swing tackle, I'm okay with that. Viridian Lowe starting at left tackle.
That's
not to take it for Viridian Lowe. I really liked his game in 2024. It's just as a starter, it's not what you want. But like I said, if he's your swing,
fine as a backup left tackle. If you need him to start 2 games at left tackle for you, that's fine. If you need him to start 10 games at left tackle for you, that's an issue.
If you need him to catch a touchdown, he'll do it too. I just don't want to backtrack my Carolina statement. I'm not backtracking it. When I say buy low, I mean, I feel like by 26, they're going to be that team. Like, I feel like they need another year. They need to earn more respect. Like, not go 5-12. Like, if they can go 7-10 or like 8 and like 6, like somewhere between like 6 to 8 wins, it's kind of like, hey, they're making the steps to improve. But until I see those steps to improve, there's still not a lot there. But like, they do have some receiver talent. It's just they have to become an NFL caliber receiver. Like Xavier Legette, I think, has all the tools and traits. Same with Tet. I just think they got to find ways to put it together.
I was never an Xavier Legette fan, so I'm not nearly as optimistic on him.
I like the person though too.
Oh, I love him as a human being. He seems awesome. I would happily eat squirrel with him, but
Or raccoon.
Or raccoon. Sorry, was that what it was? Yeah, but like, I just don't love him as a player. I love T Mac, but I just think they're so like the cupboard is so bare of talent there, and they have some good players. Like Bryce Young has showed stuff. J.C. Horn's a good player. I like T Mac, and I like Nick Scorton. Nick Scorton's somebody I wanted really bad in New England. They have some decent guys on the offensive line, but they just haven't hasn't been able to progress. So I mean, that's the team I'm looking for. And you mentioned Vegas being a sneaky team. I think I'm glad the Patriots are getting them week 1, because that seems like a team that by the end of the season with Pete Carroll will probably have a clear identity and will be playing better. They just, I like Geno. The offensive line's not that good. The receivers aren't that good. They have Bowers, which is awesome.
Yeah,
But
and Genty. But I will say this too. I do like Power Jones as their center, though. I think him and Colton Miller are two
yeah,
good offensive linemen, but everyone else is kind of like we're still trying to figure out Dylan Radins. There's like, and then their defense pretty much is just 98. And then
Max
Tyree
Crosby.
Wilson starting to come into his own, but we'll see. It's year 3 for
And they
him.
have Christian Wilkins too.
Yeah.
Wilkins is a good player, which is like that'll be talk about baptism by fire. By the way, Will Campbell meet Max Crosby. Week 1. And that's, I look at the schedule. That's another thing I'm looking at. He's going to have to deal with Max Crosby in week 1. He's going to have to deal with TJ Watt in week 3. And then week 8, it's Myles Garrett. So that's some of the best pass rushers in the NFL that Will Campbell's going to have to deal with in the first half of his rookie season. So, baptism by fire right there.
That's even the same thing. That's why I was saying the Giants game, because you're going to have one of Kayvon Thibodeau or Brian Burns or even Abdul Carter coming at you for the entirety of the game. So there's going to be a lot of like welcome to the NFL moments, but I love your opinion on the Raider game where it's like, hey, it's week 1. It's a perfect spot. Both teams are still trying to figure out their identity, but with the Raiders, and when I say I think the Raiders are going to be sneaky good, I'm not here saying worst to first that they're going to dethrone the Chiefs. No, I just think they're going to be that pesky, like you don't want to play. Like come November or December, they're going to mess up someone's year. They're going to throw a wrench into someone. They're going to be a monkey wrench in someone's playoff plan. Someone's going to think, we got Vegas. This is a win. We're good. No, boom, Vegas does some magic stuff, and they do. Like, look at Geno's tenure with Seattle. It wasn't pretty, but they were always a very competitive team those last 3 years where, look, they just missed out on the playoffs the last 2 years at 9-8 and 10-7 with that horrendous like defense one year and then the offensive line that was barely playable last year.
Yeah. The Raiders have a 4-game stretch at the end of the season, starting at the end of November, where they play the Chargers, Broncos, Eagles, and Texans all in a row. That seems like one of those stretches where they're going to get killed in 2 of those games, but one of them, they might pull out a sneaky win and make someone very upset. I was specifically looking at that Texans game, I think.
I'm going to say this right now with the Houston Texans. They're a Nico Collins injury away from having some problems. Because
I think they already have some problems. That
no, they do
offensive line is horrendous.
Oh, no. I'm just saying in the sense of with Houston, I have the joke on here where I call Nico Collins his emotional support wide receiver, where it's
no, he is.
If you notice his numbers last year when Nico was hurt versus not, because remember too, Tank Dell's not coming back in 2025. I don't think there's a chance he plays this year. They have Dalton Schultz. They have Joe Mixon.
They drafted 2 Iowa State kids, which is interesting.
I know one of them kind of broke my heart, in Higgins, but only you can do. But I'm glad this year with the Patriots that they had the South last year and not this year, because I know they went 0-4 against that division, but the Colts are a weak. Like I just don't know what to think. I think it's either everything's going to go together and it's going to look good, or it's just going to like be terrible and they're going to be looking for new people. Because my big take on them is that Chris Ballard should have been fired 3 years ago. He should not still be an NFL GM. They've never won the division under him. His biggest claim to fame was trying to lie about Tom Brady. And look, he was clinging on to the excuse for years of Andrew Luck retired in August. Well, that was 6 years ago, pal. And then I'm going to say this. I think Jacksonville's a sneaky team to win that division over Houston, just because I think
I don't think that's crazy at all.
I just think it's a big make or break here for Trevor Lawrence, and not in the sense of like him as a player, but like him and a player as a sense of, are you going to be that top 10 guy everyone thought you were going to be coming out of school? Or are you going to have that Kirk Cousins career arc, where you're always just like a middle of the pack, that middle of the pack quarterback that, hey, once in a while he's going to have a game where everyone's like, oh, look at Trevor Lawrence. And then there's some games where it's like, oh, look at Trevor Lawrence.
I feel like he should have some competent coaching around him.
For
finally.
Once.
And Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter is like a crazy duo to be thrown to. There's no excuses for him this year. And if any injuries happen with that Texans team, they go from being division favorites to like potential top 10 pick kind of team, I think, in a hurry, because, with that offensive line, there is no floor for how bad your offense can be.
They also got to shell out some money for contracts after this year too.
Yeah, they're in a really weird spot. So Jacksonville has an opportunity there. Glad the Patriots are not. Well, we don't play them this year. We
Just
get
Tennessee.
the Titans. Yeah. Um,
Think about
yeah.
the difference
Colts
between our schedule and the Jet schedule. Sorry to cut you off. Where it goes from
Yeah.
Raiders, Giants, and Titans to Broncos, Cowboys, and Jags. Think about that.
It's a pretty significant step up. So glad the Pats ended up with that last place schedule this year. Hopefully they can take advantage. Side note, while we're talking about taking advantage of the last place schedule, I was doing research on the Patriots spending spree in free agency this year.
Mm-hmm.
I found an article from Mike Reese in 2021 when the Patriots spent more than anyone else and had a record-setting spending spree. And he made a note in there that the team that spends the most in free agency usually wins, I think it's 4 or 5 more games the next season. They also, on average, will lose all of that the year after.
It's pretty much what happened in 2021 and 2022, even though 2021 was like the epitome of the season of just like a lot went their way and they won some games. They like that Charger game, they should have never won, but Adrian Phillips got a pick 6.
Yeah.
That's a game I always remember where I'm like, it was a nerve-wracking game, but then they won it because Phillips got because for some reason Bill Belichick just had Justin Herbert's number. Like I'm pretty sure some of Herbert's worst career games have come against Bill Belichick.
That Panthers game, J.C. Jackson with a long pick 6.
Oh, don't you mean Justin Bethel?
Did they?
Rest in peace. But Greg Gumbel called him Justin Bethel.
Okay,
I talked about it with your co-host after that game.
I was gonna say that sounds right. So yeah, they got very lucky at points in 2021 with that schedule. And then what's funny is the next year in 2022, they in some ways get even luckier with the schedule with the number of injured and bad quarterbacks they face. But the team has hamstrung itself so much with coaching that you can't take advantage.
They had some weird games that year. Like I still stay on the take from 22 that if Aguilar doesn't make that catch, they probably don't beat Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely don't.
No. I know week 3 was kind of the downfall of Mac, but he nearly was keeping them in the game against Baltimore. And Baltimore was just Mark Andrews was just like, hey, I'm going to bully you because Kyle Duggar's hurt. They played the 2 games. If there's 2 games of the later Belichick years that always piss me off, one is the Green Bay game because I knew that game was winnable, but they decided to play it easy and then defend when Aaron Rodgers just cut down the field. And the other one's 2021 against the Cowboys. Hunter Henry had that beautiful touchdown, and then there was the Mac Jones kind of welcome to the NFL game where he had the pick 6 against Diggs, but then him and Kendrick Bourne rebounded for a touchdown right before the 2. But then as soon as they punted from midfield, I'm like, oh, game over. And then that's when CeeDee Lamb ran downfield and I think he burned Jalen Mills.
I didn't have as big of a problem with the overtime decisions in those games.
Dallas more than Green Bay. Dallas more than Green Bay.
Yeah, the Green Bay one's tough just because it's a quarterback who's gotten no reps suddenly on the road in that environment.
Zap.
Yeah. Not much you could do. That Packers game, and that 22 season was bizarre all the way through. When the crazy part about that is that if they don't allow 2 kickoff return touchdowns in the final week of the season, there's a real chance that team's in the playoffs. There's a real chance that team wins games against the Dolphins and Bills in the final 2 weeks of the season, going on the road against the Bills to get in and get the 7th seed.
Scotty Washington against Cincinnati.
And arguably they should have won that game.
That was a weird game. Oh, Marcus Jones had a pick 6 in that one, no?
Did he?
I think Marcus Jones had a pick 6 in that game.
Oh, yeah, he did. I thought he said Mac. Yeah, he did. And just that stretch of games, after the bye, the Jets game that year, you went on the walk-off punt. The Vikings game, where you're really hanging with them on Thanksgiving and then get some tough calls against you.
Yeah, Alex Kemp.
And just can't stick with them. The Monday night game in Arizona where Kyler Murray tears his ACL right away.
He was cooking them until he tore his ACL. They were going to get killed that game, but...
Well, it was also two or three plays in that he got hurt.
No, but early on, they couldn't tackle him. I remember he took an awkward step, and then there was that weird Raekwon McMillan, Pierre Strong, and Kevin Harris all had touchdowns in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, very weird. Let's see. Kyler Murray had, he got hurt on the third play. He had a completion. They handed it off, and he scrambled for 3 yards and got hurt.
Yep.
Um,
Kind of the downfall
Raiders,
of Kingsbury, too.
Yeah. The Raiders game, which we all know how that one ended. The Bengals game, which they simultaneously had no business being in, and yet no business losing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're at the Cincinnati 5-yard line. All you have to do is get it into the end zone. It's 1st and goal, and you fumble the ball away.
Yep.
And then the Dolphins game against Skylar Thompson, where you barely win and you need a defensive touchdown to do it. And then the Bills game, where you give up 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown. It's just a complete comedy.
I mean, the Bills game, if the Patriots had won that, they would have been public enemy number 1 because we all knew what the Bills were riding on.
Oh, yeah.
That was the Hamlin game.
And it's honestly a good thing the Patriots didn't win anyway, because that team didn't deserve the playoffs. And, can you imagine who they've played in the playoffs that year?
Well, Miami, I think, was 7, and Buffalo was 2.
I think they would have had to go to Cincinnati. Wait, that was so because of the Hamlin thing, I don't remember the tiebreaker between the Bills and the Bengals. I don't remember what happened to playoff seeding if they tied.
Well, but I won their division. They played Ravens that year. And what happened? Sam Hubbard, that was the goofy fumble, and Sam Hubbard ran it from the opposite end of the field. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. No, but if the Patriots had gotten in there, they're the 7 seed playing the 2. The 2 seed with Buffalo. But if they win that last game, the Bills would have tied the Bengals. So I don't know who the actual 2 seed would have been. I don't remember how the NFL had ruled for tiebreakers there.
I don't know. The only thing I'm glad the NFL has done today, look, I'm ready in 2028 to watch Justin Jefferson lining up against a landscaper from Belgium in flag football. Which I still say I feel like don't send the best of the best. You don't need to do a Dream Team USA. Send the mid-pack guy. Send the fun gadgets like the Xavier Worthies and stuff like that.
Send Marcus Jones.
Exactly.
He would be amazing. I think you have to send Travis Hunter. I think it would be a waste if you didn't send Travis Hunter for that kind of competition.
Like Patrick, you can have there to be name and face, but Kansas City's probably going to go. He's not playing.
Oh yeah, and Lamar is the guy you'd love to have there in a flag football game, but there's no way anyone's going to let him near that. So just take, what they should do is take whoever the top quarterback is in the draft that year, top college quarterback coming into the year, and let him play.
Send Ryan Williams or oh
my God,
who's the guy from? Why am I blanking on his name from Ohio State? Jeremiah.
Oh, Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith, yeah. Jeremiah Smith. Send those guys. Send the
They should send Christian Gonzalez.
Ooh.
I'm just looking for those speed guys who are good in space. If Trevion Henderson could be.
That's why I said Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
That's why I said Worthy. Send those guys. The guys who are aren't the well-known names. You don't need to be going and having we're gonna have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. We're gonna have Saquon Barkley running the ball. We're gonna have Justin Jefferson at one receiver. We're gonna have AJ Brown at the other receiver. No, you don't do that. Just send the fun guys that no one really knows about, or hell, even Christian Gonzalez might go play for Columbia. We don't know that. His sister, his sister does represent Columbia. Even Columbia has a flag football team. Yeah, which the weird butterfly effect about that, right? That his brother-in-law is David Blau.
Yeah, and I love that video. With her winning or racing. But they should just send a team of all the fastest guys, to be honest, for something like that. Just get pure speed out there and everything else, because you'll still get absolute domination.
Oh yeah, you'll see the I feel like you'll see the big stars there to say hey, they're here, but this is not going to be USA basketball where it's just hey, these guys are here and they're going to kill you. I think there's more in the contracts, because especially with football, one wrong pivot and the entire team season's down the drain.
Oh yeah, and that's that'll limit it too, where it's okay, we're gonna be, and then they're gonna have to make sure the field conditions are really good for it too. Like
I don't
it's
know. I don't know if the location for it's been announced yet or not.
2028 Olympics.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up just because like I know by now the venues are all announced. Like I know obviously there's
Oh, that's in Los Angeles. So I'm gonna guess that's at like the Coliseum,
I love how I search LA.
or you just you just do that at SoFi.
Yes. I was just trying to think like where else could they do? Yeah, I got it right here, the LA page. Just the Wikipedia. Let's see. The games. Yeah, literally I see the whole thing about like flag football. Let's see, equestrian flag football. Background. Yeah, there's nothing really here to it. It just shows like
Yeah, I'm sure as we get closer, they'll announce venues.
yeah, but like I know the opening ceremonies and stuff
Oh,
like that. Yep.
it says on their website it does have the venue for it. Stadium in
Ooh.
Exposition Park, which I believe is where the LA Galaxy play.
Oh, okay. So it's probably because I feel like SoFi it was being used probably for opening or closing or track or soccer.
Yeah, sorry. It's the LA Football Club. So I didn't realize that they have multiple MLS teams.
They do. The stadium's like right near downtown. There used to be two teams a long time ago. One went bankrupt, so then they got a bunch of celebrities together and said, "We're bringing another team to the main part of LA because where the Galaxy plays like in a suburb of Los Angeles." That's right. But the other big thing to come out because I love the fact that there's the owners meetings that happened before the draft,
And
and
then
now there are
the
these other
second
ones.
owners meetings.
But then no one cares about these ones. I feel like the first, like the ones back in like right before like between the
Is
free
that
agency and the
March?
draft, yeah, at the end of March in Palm Beach, everyone's making a big deal out of this. This one though, I think is where a lot more stuff actually happens. I think the other one's more like, hey, FaceTime, like they have the big breakfasts. I think this one's more just the owners. I think the other ones too is because the other one has the coaches, the GMs, like there's more personnel that are there. And there's also a lot more reporters that go. Like the reporters at this one, I'm pretty sure is just like the true like NFL media. Like I don't know how many or
Yeah,
like
the
I don't think
national.
like I don't think like I know for example like friend of the show Andrew Callahan and Doug Kyde were at the one in Palm Beach. Like there's other teams, big reporters like Mike Reese, Karen, all those people were at those ones. But I don't think any of like those people are at or in Minneapolis right now.
Well, there's OTAs now, so all the
Yeah.
people are at OTAs. This is when you have the meetings before, it's an opportunity for owners to talk a little bit because moves were just made. Now that's not going to happen, and also we know all the proposals now. Like that's when we find out about the proposal, so it's
Mhm.
new and there's intrigue. There's slight amendments to the proposals now, but that's not near the same kind of attention.
Which they did announce that there is not going to be the reseeding one that went through, which I'm still
Thank
surprised. I know I'm just surprised that I'd understand if you want to say, hey, we'll do reseeding after the wild card round, where it's like, you know, like, hey,
yeah.
like you do that kind of like how it works in some other playoffs. But like, if you get rid of division champions, where it's just, hey, if you have the like, say if it was like, because I believe it would have gone Detroit won, Minnesota would have been 2. So that would have meant that Minnesota would have played not Washington. Who would they have played?
No, it would have
Oh,
been Washington because that's who the Eagles played.
no, the Buccaneers. No, they would have played the Packers because the Commanders
Oh,
played.
I forgot that game happened.
Yeah. There was the only good game wild card weekend was that Bucks Commanders game because it came down to the wire. Every other game was a pure ass whooping.
Yeah,
But
I forgot most of those games even happened.
But that's the thing with it though, where like it just ruins divisions. I hated the fact it was Detroit that was proposing it, where it's like, yeah, you were almost a victim of it. That's like saying, you know what, like, hey, I almost made chicken tonight for dinner, but I forgot to take it out of the freezer this morning. I almost forgot to do X. I almost forgot to do Y.
Yeah.
It didn't happen
Well,
to you, so why should anyone care?
it felt like a gentleman's agreement between Detroit and Minnesota, where whoever
Yeah.
won was going to be the one to propose it, so the loser didn't have to be like, yeah, which is silly. The NFL nailed the playoff format in '02. I'm still not a fan of expanding to 7 teams in each conference. I don't think the 7 seed has really done anything of note,
I think eight's coming.
which is dumb. Like I was saying this with Pat on our show. Um, what was nice about the 6 teams was the way it tiered out really nicely. You had 3 clear tiers of teams in the playoffs. 2 teams that got buys, 2 teams that won their divisions but were worse, and 2 teams that were wild cards. And within that, you had really good competition because the 1 seed matters a ton no matter what, and also the 2 seed mattered a great deal. So there's a really intense battle for the 1 and the 2, and a really intense battle for the 2 and the 3. I don't like swapping that out for maybe extra drama about who's going to get in as the 7th seed. Drama about home field and buys to me is way more impactful
Yep.
for regular season games than drama about a 7 seed. And I get that this means more games, so more money, but like I feel like it's diluting the product a little bit.
I will say this. I've been saying that if you do bring in an 8th playoff spot, I do think they would bring back, because I was doing the math. You bring in an 8th team, the second bye does get reintroduced. Because then what you would do is you have 3 versus 8, which would probably be a weird game. You have 4 versus 7, but then you have 2 wildcard teams playing, and a wildcard team would get a home game. So that would mean then the difference between, like, hey, if you don't win your division, it makes for more competitive football down the stretch. Where if you're a 5 seed, think of how weird that sounds. But if you're a 5 seed, you get a home playoff game instead of having to go on the road to play a division winner. So like
Well,
last year,
I don't think you can do buys with the 8 because then you'd have like an odd number of teams down the road. Because if you have buys, then it would be 6, so you'd end up with 3 winners coming out of it. Yeah, it would be no buys, which I think is dumber.
which I think you would then do. So if you do no buys would be silly, but it's just pretty much home field, because then it would go, the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 4
It
versus
would just
6,
be like
4
the
versus
NBA
5, excuse me.
playoffs. Yeah,
It would be, but then you basically so you have 8 total games. So then you get 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday. But then the one that they
Monday.
introduced 2 years ago accidentally, you get the 2 games on Martin Luther King Day. You get a 4:30 Monday game, and then you get an 8 o'clock Monday game.
I don't. Who needs to see these 8th seeds in the playoffs?
No one needs to. I just feel like, look, when they went from 16 to 17, they introduced the 7 seed. So I feel like if they go from 17 to 18, they're going to introduce an 8th. They're going to introduce it just because, look, does it dilute the product? Yes. I'm just trying to make it work because I feel like it's coming, because we all knew that as soon as 17 happened, 17 was a gateway to 18. And also to like for example, like the second bye week, like if people see the stuff around me with the CFL stuff, they do 18 games and 3 bye weeks, and the season goes from the beginning of June till about the last week of October, but then their playoffs are a lot shorter because there's only 9 teams. I just think that it's something to prepare for, and I think it could happen as early as next year, the 18th game.
Well, when's the CBA up? Because they're not going to do that. That's going to be getting an 18th game that'll be a big thing for the players, and the players are not going to allow an 18th game without some serious concessions. They'll probably trade something for it.
It was ratified in March 2020, and it's in place through 2030. I feel like the NFL is going to try to do their skeef ways of working around that, though. That's why I'm saying it.
I think they'll put pressure. They might make the players cave on something early, but the earlier before CBA you're asking the players to cave and add another game, the more the league is going to have to give up to make it happen. More in revenue or more in other things that players are interested in, whether it's guarantees about field conditions and natural grass is something we've heard a lot from players lately, or anything else that they're interested in for that. And I would think part of that concession is going to be the addition of another bye week, probably one last preseason game too. Which,
like the Patriots only have 3 right now, and their last preseason game I think is August 21st. So they have almost 3 weeks, but they almost have 3 weeks from the last preseason game to the week 1.
Yeah, they have an early preseason week 4 game or week 3 game. Like week 4 of the preseason still exists essentially, but it's a bye for everyone, which I like. I have no issue with the current, but I wouldn't go fewer than 3 preseason games because I think the players and the teams need it to get ready.
Yeah, so they play August 21st, excuse me. So they have that, then Friday, and then every team play the last preseason games are August 23rd. So essentially you have that August 24th, no one plays, August 31st, no one plays, but then September 7th, boom, everyone plays. So
it's a full bye week for everyone.
Yeah, so essentially, it's the full bye week. Obviously, look, there's work to be done with like cuts and all that stuff. That's the bridge we cross when we get there. I also love seeing like how there's a random preseason game at like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday.
Oh, those West Coast ones.
Yes, which they did sneakily reintroduce again this year. They're doing the ESPN games where it's like 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. where the 10 p.m. ones are like, I'll watch like the first half and then by halftime I'm going to be like, this game's either boring or I have to go to work in the morning.
See, I'm deranged, so I'll just stay up no matter what. I'm a sicko.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a sicko too. But like if the game's just like, there was one instance last year where it was the Rams Niners Thursday night game. I was watching it and like literally I'm like, why did I watch that? And I'm like, oh right, because I'm a sicko. But no, like when I say all this stuff going back to game 18, I'm just saying it as like we know it's coming, but I do agree with you. It's not happening without a second bye week. There's no way it happens. If that happens, the NFL is just basically a double standard on their beliefs on player safety, where it goes from like, oh yeah, we believe
Well,
player safety.
they have no beliefs on player safety. They believe in the money.
No, but they have the belief of we believe.
I don't think so at all. I mean, I think there's some people in the league that probably care, but I think they care enough to appease the players. They can put a product on the field.
Oh, that's what I meant. Like when I say like like they want us to think that they believe. That's what it is.
Oh,
Even though like you and I know that like look, they look at money and they see it as, hey, we're doing this. Like even this year, the one thing I feel like they should have done is the teams that are playing on like how last year, how the teams playing on the Saturday are the ones who played the Wednesday Christmas games. They should have had the teams that are playing on, which I call a glorious day. That's double NFL doubleheader and then the 3 college football games. I also call that glorious day my birthday, but I think that at least 2 of those teams should have been playing on Saturday, so they get a full like partially. So you get that, so you get Sunday,
yeah.
Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday instead of just the Sunday to Thursday.
I just don't like the playing on. Like I'm okay with playing on Christmas if it's like near the weekend, but when it's the middle of the week, I don't like that. I would never do more than 1 game on the holiday either, because I think that's tough. The one holiday I'm surprised they haven't encroached on more is a Black Friday. Like that's the one to me that's like everybody has it off, and stereotypically it's the day where people are out shopping. So the target demographic of the NFL, which is what 18 to 54-year-old men, are
Yeah,
typically just home by themselves during that time. Obviously, things have changed with more online shopping, but like put 3 more games on, like have 3 games on Thanksgiving, 3 games on Black Friday. If you really wanted to load up a holiday schedule, you could totally do it that way.
there's that broadcast agreement from 1962 where it's like if the first Friday in September doesn't fall on Labor Day weekend, the NFL can play. So I feel like they'll exploit that more with like how, for example, the 2 Brazil games over Black Friday, just because I think at that point they can't play at a certain time. That's why they do the Black Friday game at 3 o'clock. So
Oh,
it's
does it have to be a day game?
that's
They can't play
that's
at night.
they can't play at
Ah,
night because I think you have to be
yeah.
done by a certain point to where you don't interfere with college or high school, even though if there are college games on Black Friday, that's why. And then with Christmas Day, I think they realized that how well of a number they did that Vikings Saints game where Kamara just went. I still love that game. Kamara won so many people
Is that
fantasy
the 6
football.
touchdown game?
Yep. He wore the cleats with the little gifts on them, the red and green cleats that are in Canton, along with his fine letter that he got for wearing those cleats. But the NFL basically saw that in 2021 where they were like, oh, we're not giving this back. And the fact that
Yeah.
it goes Netflix, and Prime is an even bigger like, hey, you want to go and watch NBA, you got to get out of the streaming service and then go to cable or even whatever. I don't know if ESPN Plus carries those games or if it's if ABC is a streamer or not, but like they just basically looked at it where I think the first test for that one is going to come in the year 2029 when Christmas is on a Tuesday. I know they did the
Yeah.
Wednesday this year, but when it's on a
Tuesday's tough.
Tuesday, you're going to get the extended week where it's probably you play games on that Monday night, the 24th, a full slate on the 23rd, games on the 22nd, and then games, my favorite day in December, the 20th. You're going to get games there too. So you're getting you're literally getting Thursday to Tuesday of NFL football.
Yeah. And that'll be crazy. I will say if you give me control over the laws around this stuff, I would probably limit it to, not to maybe 1 game only on Christmas. I'm not personally the biggest fan of that, which that's a tough one with the family when it's, oh man, the Patriots have a holiday game this year. Instead of spending time with my family, I'm going to go do this instead. That
A
never
lot of
goes
people
over
probably get
well.
sick. That's the one thing I always think about too, like with the NBA, is like how many people that are at those games got those tickets as Christmas gifts that morning, where it's like, hey,
Oh
like
yeah,
you're a
or the
Celtics
night
fan,
before. Yeah.
or if it's like, hey, we're going to like, hey, you're spending Christmas and like we're doing this, or even like if you're in a warmer climate, like say if like Miami's playing a Christmas game, and it's like, hey, like we're here, like we're in Florida for Christmas, let's go watch the game.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, that part's cool. Um,
Yeah.
that experience I like, but I just don't love it's 2 o'clock on Christmas and everyone's trying to open presents, and I'm also trying to follow a Chiefs Steelers game.
I mean, this year's slate they did really good with Christmas, where it's Lions, Vikings, Commanders, Cowboys, and then Broncos and Chiefs. Which I know a lot of people are pissed about the Chiefs, where it's like Chiefs fatigue. I just look at it as, hey, if you know you have an entity that's going to make you a lot of money and basically bring eyeballs, you exploit that to the fullest.
Well, they're the best. If the Patriots were still the dynasty Patriots, they'd be getting put in that slot. Like
Yeah,
that's the way it is. If you draw a lot of people, like that's why you said Cowboys Commanders is one of those.
yep.
Yeah, are the Cowboys going to be any good this year?
Think they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to be like this great team, but I still think they're going to hover at like 8 to 10 wins.
Which feels right, and it's like, all right, we're putting a team like that on Christmas. It's because it's the Cowboys. But I will say, side note, looking at the schedule, Cowboys and Falcons immediately feel like two teams to me where it's like, oh, they got too many primetime games, and we're gonna get to week 6, and everyone's gonna be looking at the schedule like, oh, are you kidding me? I gotta watch this team how many more times?
Yeah, like week so like I was looking at the games like week 1 which week 1 Sunday night football Bills Ravens, that's going to be just the worst, the most like ugly discourse about that game no matter who wins. The
Oh
one
yeah.
the one I have a problem with is week 3. Why are the Giants and Chiefs a primetime game? I know it's the Chiefs, but like that's a potential lamb to the slaughter.
And the Giants draw eyeballs. Like that is the entire reason for it. People watch the Giants because they're a big market team. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to look at some of these other games to see.
Week 6 though is the most beautiful slate on that Sunday. You wake up the
Week
Jets,
6 has Lions Chiefs.
you
Ooh.
wake up the Jets and Broncos. And then there's a pretty solid afternoon. It's like Cleveland Pittsburgh's always fun. Ravens and Rams and Ravens, 49ers Bucks, Seattle Jacksonville could be intriguing. LA Miami, 425 Patriots and Saints for some reason, and then 820 Chiefs Lions, which that's a game that's like when I look at the away schedule, that's where I'm like, if I were to go to an away game this year, it's either week 5 or week 6, just because I would love to go to a Sunday night football game. It's just still don't know how safe I would be in Buffalo.
Fair, fair.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now. The Falcons have back-to-back primetime games. Looks like week 6 and 7 against the Bills and the 49ers. That to me, I'm curious what that Falcons team is at that point because they also have week 2 um, against the Vikings. And
That's
that's
because of
like,
Kirk.
man.
That's literally there for Kirk.
Oh yeah, and that's totally fine. But it's also like, man, depending on what the 49ers are this season, the Falcons could lose all 3 of those and be like 3-4 coming out of week 7. And we're all like, oh man.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's
I was I was never as high on Penix as some others were. I just still have concerns about his accuracy. So I'm like, oh man, if he's throwing balls like some of the ones he threw last year on prime time for 3 out of the first 7 weeks, the narratives are going to be something.
they just have one player that I am buying a lot of stock into right now,
Who's that?
Bijan.
Fair.
I think this could be the year where he kind of like I'm not saying arrives, but like really installs himself in like this new core of like elite running backs in the NFL, where it's like,
What?
like, hey, you see guys like Henry. I know Henry's still charging at an all pro level, but like, his career's starting to wind down. Christian McCaffrey, etc. Saquon's going to be there soon. So Bijan's like that new crop of like elite NFL running backs. Because when you look at it right now, what running backs coming up besides Travion Henderson have that like, poised to be elite? Like there's not a
Well,
lot of
Genty.
Gent, yeah, but like like already in the league, like already, like not
Oh,
like
yeah.
rookies, like already in the league. Like there's a bunch of good running backs, but there's not like Bijan's the one name where I feel like it's next man up for him. Like I'm not here to say like he could win Opoi, but I feel like he's a if it's like one of those like long
He
shot
could.
futures if you want to take a shot at.
Yeah, no, I don't hate that at all. Well, and to me, the Falcons are such an interesting team because there's so much of the roster that I like. I feel like that team has so many good
8 and
players.
9 or 9 and 8. It's one of the two.
Well, I mean, I think they could win that division. They could win 12 games. The problem is they might roll out there and you're
Or
going to
Raheem
get through the
Morris gets
first 3
fired.
weeks
We
of the
don't know.
season. When you might realize by the end of week 3, our quarterback isn't accurate
Mm-hmm.
and this offense is not working with all the talent because the quarterback's not good enough. And we still have no pass rush, even though we threw 2 first-round picks at it this year. And if that's the world you end up in, this team's like a 7 or 8 win team that's not going to win the division. Like they're just because if your passer's not good and you can't affect the other team's passer, you're not going to win in this league.
That's exactly it. You just gotta you need to develop that because if their season goes south, they're cooked for next year. That's the thing. Like this
Oh
season,
yeah,
like I also say too when I say Raheem Morris could get fired, and a lot of people are like, oh, they won't do that. I'm like, Arthur Blank's done stupider things in the past, so I just feel like if they don't make the playoffs, I think it's going to be him and also Terry Fontenot, who's got a lot of questionable stuff on his record. Because
yes.
I also say that too because I'm in
Maybe.
belief. Well, I'm in the belief of if you fire one, you fire both.
I like 98% of the time I agree.
Yeah, the only instance where I'm like, okay, you get a fair shake at it is the Bears, where I feel like they kind of buy like Ryan Poles, where it's like, yeah, Eberflus, this and this. We're gonna get Ben Johnson, which I still say this. Ben Johnson has someone on his staff he brought from Detroit who I do think will be a head coach, not like soon, but like in the next 3 to 5 years.
Who is?
Antoine Randall.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because he's done some real fun stuff. I
He's
always liked him as a player too.
he's also one of those guys where I always saw him on the side. Like he's one of the guys like I always see right behind Dan Campbell, where he's like always just as excited and like just as like communication heavy, to where I'm like, he's the guy that players can play, like like a player's coach.
Oh yeah, 100%. By the way, speaking of the fire one, you fire both. I was thinking of the Eagles as probably the one big exception, as like that's a franchise that has had the same GM for a while now, and they just keep hiring coaches, maxing out what that coach can do, bottoming out, and then moving on to a new one.
I think Howie's brought 2 Super Bowls, so he's kind of Teflon. I just think it's
Oh
like
yeah, it's a testament to how good Howie Roseman is. He's very good at knowing what coach to hire and knowing when they've reached the end of their rope and it's time for something new.
I love how Sirianni gets an extension, and there's like half the timeline's just like we still don't know if he's good or not. It's like
I
he
was
won the
one of my
Super.
buddies. One of my buddies is an Eagles fan, and I asked him the question: would you trade Nick Sirianni for Mike Vrabel right now? And his answer was, I don't know. And I
Yeah,
think it's the same the other way. I don't know if I would trade Vrabel for Sirianni. Like I
he's
can't tell.
Sirianni's the coach where he's goofy enough to where if he's winning, it works. That's the thing. If
Yeah.
they were bad, they would have teared him to shreds. He probably would. Like, because there's a realistic world where he was almost fired a year ago.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's not. And I'm interested to see how they are as a team this year as their old core is retiring. Like Jason Kelsey's gone, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham had a quiet retirement. I don't think a lot of people
Mhm.
realize that he walked away.
Yeah.
To where it's like, what are they going to be? But then it's just going to be, they're just going to keep loading up and doing the exact same thing year in and year out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I'm curious to see how the Eagles end up playing this year too, because they're probably due for a little bit of regression. Like they get a little bit lucky at points last year, and they're probably not going to be able to match that all season long. Obviously, it's very hard to go back to back. And also Sirianni, I feel like he's almost called him like an amplifier. When your team's good, he makes them better. When your team's bad, he almost makes them worse.
Yeah.
He maximizes those characteristics of your roster.
He's kind
So
of like Aaron Boone in a way with baseball,
I kind of see that. Yeah, I
where
definitely
it's
see that.
like when the Yankees are
But he
good.
wins.
No, yeah, Sirianni's won a chip. Aaron Boone hasn't won shit. I just meant in the sense with Boone where it's like when the Yankees are playing terribly, the fans want his head on a platter. When they're good, no one's really saying anything. It's just he's like he's an easy target for fan abuse.
Oh, 100%.
That's what it is. That division as a whole intrigues me just because it's like I feel like Washington, there may be not natural regression, but like I think they're just gonna have some games where it's like Jaden Daniels looks unreal, and then there's gonna be some games where some teams are like, oh, we know how to beat them. And then
Yeah. Well, the Commanders face a tougher schedule this year as well.
yeah. And then
Much tougher.
I actually want to pull up their first few games. But then like Dallas, I said too, will be like that middle of the pack team. And then New York's just New York. I don't really know what to say with them. Okay. Giants, Packers, Raiders, Falcons, Chargers, Bears, Cowboys, Chiefs.
That Falcons game is going to be very interesting.
That Packer week 2 game, just because the Packers are always there, I could see them beating them beating the Giants, but then losing to the Packers, and everyone's going to start the Stephen A. Smith machine of, oh, is Jaden Daniels this him? Is he this? And then he plays against the Raiders and just balls out, where it's like, oh, hey, yeah, Jaden's him. Where it's like, where there's going to be those moments. And then, look, and then you have the NFC West where I'm ready to say this. I think the Rams are going to be a force. I don't think people are kind of forgetting about. And then you have a couple, there's a couple other teams in there where I'm like, Brock Purdy's getting $53 million. Where's Kyler Murray? And is Sam Darnold New York or Minnesota Sam?
There's a whole bunch of teams in the NFC where I look at them and I'm like, I don't know if I think you're that good. And then I look at the rest of the NFC and I'm like, and I still think you're better than like 10 teams. The Rams are interesting because I like a lot of that roster, and also that team is perpetually one Matthew Stafford shoulder or neck injury away from being like a top 10 pick. And then the opposite of that, like you look at Minnesota, they're all in on JJ McCarthy, who I liked a lot. I'm a Michigan fan, so I'm very excited to see what he ends up being. Loved rooting for him with Michigan. But like we have no clue. That is a total question mark. What McCarthy is going to be week 1, what he's going to be week 10, what he's going to be week 18. Minnesota could win that division. They could be a playoff team. They could be a team that picks in the top 10.
Minnesota to me screams, I trust Kevin O'Connell enough to where I think he makes it work, but I don't think they're good enough to be a great team. I think they either just miss the playoffs or they're also going to regress to where everyone's going to go, what happened last year? What happened last year? Well, they went 14-3 and they're not going to go 14-3 again. I think they're going to play a more boring style of football because we've seen them just go in and say, hey, we're going to upgrade our offensive line with Ryan Kelly. And I forget who the other person they brought from the Colts was, but they upgraded the offensive line.
Oh, yeah.
And
they got the guard from the Colts, and I'm totally forgetting his name.
They also did a weird trade where the Colts got Cam Bynum and Daniel Jones, and then 2025 Vikings.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm looking at the wrong roster here. Which, by the way, the Colts going to get Daniel Jones. Oh, Will Freeze. That's who the Vikings got. The Colts going to get Daniel Jones was an immediate red flag to me. Like, we might know the Colts are toast by the end of week 2.
They also got Javon Hargrave. And yeah, the Colts are good. That's like I said. Colts are probably going to be one of those teams that are looking for both head coach and GM in 2026.
Yeah. Unless Anthony Richardson pulls something out. But, like, he's a guy who needed to play a lot to develop. And we're in year 3, and he just hasn't played a lot because he hasn't been healthy. And it's like, all right, well. And he doesn't have that as well.
He doesn't have it mentally, but he also he tapped out of the one game, and then he that is the only game in 2024 that truly pissed me off for the Patriots. Just to circle it back to them before we wrap up, where they had it in the bag, they go on that drive, and they go for 2, and he hits the Fortnite in the end zone. I'm just like, God damn it, we suck.
Well, and that was just like so many. Like, it's Anthony Richardson is not a consistent player, and you made him look consistent at the end. He made every mistake, and it was just like that's a loss. That's 100% on coaching.
Yep.
Poor play calls, and then poor execution. And when you see it across the roster the way it was last year, it's like, I know these players aren't this bad. They're not being put in a position to succeed, and that was kind of where it was started to be a real turning point. From we knew Mayo was going to be young and inexperienced and was going to have to grow a little to this is not happening as fast as it needs to happen.
Look, I respect Robert Kraft for the decision of just pulling the trigger on that. I really do, because I knew it wasn't easy for him, but I respect it for him. Um, and the fact that it was done so swiftly, I think it was Bills people were like letting the Patriots people know, it's like, hey, you just fired your coach, where it's just like everyone's working on their assignments to get it in, and then it just goes from like, oh, Patriots won this to whoop, coach is fired. I know you really
Yeah.
grinded tape during the draft, and one more thing I want to ask you before we go, and
Yeah,
it's not Will
go for it.
Campbell related, because I'm like Pat, I'm a Will Campbell guy. Is there another pick that really stands out to you that you're excited to watch?
So this is funny because I do think the player that I'm most excited about in this class might also be the draft pick where I feel the worst about it. And that's Trevion Henderson. So I'll start with the good. Trevion Henderson, explosive player, obvious scheme fit,
Yes.
home run hitter, protects the ball. He's a leader. He's a guy who you feel comfortable with him as a running back in the committee, and you also think he could be a lead back at some point. And specifically, if you're designing a run game around Drake May, he makes a lot of sense. And if you're designing a third down pass game around Drake May, he makes a lot of sense. He's super versatile. I see exactly where he fits in this offense. The flip side to it is this. We just got through a free agency period where the Patriots went into it. What do you need? You need receivers, you need offensive line, you need pass rushers. There's just not a lot out there at those positions in free agency because teams re-sign their own players. So you go into the draft really still needing all of those spots. And on the board at 38, you had a Luther Burden, who was considered a highly rated wide receiver.
Went
And you
39.
had two, what was that? Yeah. You had two different edge rushers, a kid from BC and Nick Scorton, who went to Carolina, who are all rated higher than Henderson by consensus boards, who are all at bigger positions of need and all positions where you don't find players on the open market. Passing on all of those guys to take a running back who I like a lot, who was a 4-year player, who had injury concerns, who, in the best case scenario, you are probably debating if you want to re-sign him because he's going to end up, like, if he pans out as well as you think he could, we're debating whether or not we should re-sign him because he's going to be so expensive. And it's going to be like, well, do we want to pay running back this kind of money? That is tough for me. And then Forged in Foxborough, the Patriots at one point, it appeared, had an offer on the board that included picks 58, 79, and a third-round pick last year to come up to 38, which is a massive haul for that. We don't know the full context. We don't know if the Patriots were giving up more than that. And it's kind of unclear from the way it's edited if that trade was just pulled off the table or not. Passing on that kind of a haul, passing on drafting the top receiver on the board, passing on drafting two different edge rushers for a running back at that spot, to me, is tough. And that's just like, you're basically betting on Henderson being your Jahmyr Gibbs. Nobody thought he was the new, like, if people thought he was the next Jahmyr Gibbs, he's not sitting there at 38. He's going in the first round. And then I'll counter that myself by saying the Bears also offered a 7th-round pick to come up and take him. So Ben Johnson wanted Jahmyr Gibbs and had him rated over Luther Burden. So it's like all of this stuff going on with it. Very excited to see him in a Patriots uniform. Very concerned about the process of how you get to that pick. And I do think if it's 4 years from now, if it's 1 year from now, the Patriots still need pass rush and receivers, and Luther Bird's a good player. Nick Scorton's a good player. Even if Trevion Henderson's a good player, you're going to be looking back saying, hey, we could have had a good player at a more valuable position who's going to play longer for our franchise.
Yep. Look, I like the pick. It just leaves me in a flux of like, where is the running back position? Because I was always one, like, for all the Juwan Bentley, Joe Cardona, David Andrews, those guys getting cut. I always thought there was a chance it was going to be Ramondre Stevenson, to be honest with you. But I do think that if Ramondre has a wonky year, he's probably not going to be on the team in 2026. So,
I 100% agree.
Yeah, I do think that he would be a cut, just because, like, when you look at the contracts, I know next year it's a lot easier to get out from under his contract with a dead cap hit's not insane. And that's not saying Ramondre is a bad player. It's just he needs that. He also just needs to be coached properly to where it's like, hey, if you can have Ramondre be Ramondre, and then you have Trevion kind of come in and, like, not goal line, but like short yardage situations, and then you have him either going out of the backfield, or you still use Gibson or Ramondre in that situation. Running back's not the biggest concern, but yeah, there's still major concerns with, not major, but there's more outlier concerns with edge and wide receiver. I can 1,000% agree with you on that.
Yeah. And I will say part of this for me is like, I wasn't as high on Kyle Williams as a lot of people were. I was a Jalen Noel guy. So they're passing on Jalen Noel for Kyle Williams was really tough for me to swallow.
I think they're going
And
for
I was
character
also not a
too.
Will Campbell. I was also not a Will Campbell guy. So like it was very much like, okay, they're going at positions of need, and none of these are like, for those two were not the players I would have picked. I did love the Jared Wilson pick. There was one other one for me, which I think is like most excited to see this year, and that's Braden Swinson. That's a guy I liked a lot. I think he's a really good scheme fit. He's a guy where I feel like Harold Landry is going to be a starter at the beginning of week 1, and by the end of the season, Braden Swinson probably takes that role because he has so much juice as an edge rusher, and like if he could just learn from Landry and pick up some of the finer points of Landry's game, his awareness, his ability to play lanes when he's rushing, he could be a really good player for you. Someone who could be your Matthew Judon year in and year out. And like he's never going to be a top flight edge rusher, but he can be kind of an elite mop up duty guy who's, if you get internal pressure, he'll really rack up sacks, and then he'll pick up a couple extra on his own just from sheer quickness. So very excited. And from all indications at OTAs today, Swinson was rotating in a lot and looked good.
I mean, the most I wasn't online too much today from OTAs. I did see a friend of the program, Sophie, posting a bunch of stuff with Drake May, and I'm just going, there's explicit content that's not allowed on this app. Just watch him throw a football. I'm just like, my goodness. But no, like, you know what? If you guys stay till the end of this, comment Matt's mustache. Because this was pretty much what I like to call off-season water cooler talk, because where you and I just talking about like whatever for the last hour and a bit, but it was a blast getting to do it. We'll have to chum it up again sometime before the season, if that's okay with you. I know I'm putting him on the spot right now.
Absolutely. Also, can I plug something that Pat and I have coming up?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're starting a new off-season series. We were looking for something to talk about in June.
Yeah.
We realized it has been 21 years now since the Patriots had their 21-game win streak.
Ooh.
So in June, we are rewatching all 21 games from the win streak and looking back on them as a little retrospective. So we're starting that first Monday in June, and it's going to go like basically right up until training camp. So that'll be about Mondays and Thursdays.
Oh, I love that. Stay tuned for that, guys.
Yeah, I already watched the Pats Titans game that started it in 2003, and that is a trip down memory lane watching that game. You see they're doing promos for the new hit comedy on CBS, 2.5 Men.
Oh, that is amazing. But anyway, guys, check that out, because as we know, Pat's an OG friend of the show. Matt's a new friend of the show. But you know what, guys? Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more from me. Hope you enjoyed some off-season water cooler talk. I'll be back very soon. Matt will be back before you know it, in him and in all his glory. Anyway, guys, take care. Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Episode 361 in the bag.